Commander Hyun-Woo Kim stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Aegis Prime, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. The ship floated at the edge of human space, far from Earth's warm blue glow. It was quiet here. Peaceful even. The only sounds were the soft hums of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of monitoring systems. Hyun-Woo had been stationed here for 3 months now. His job was simple: watch for anything unusual and report back to Earth. Command, so far, nothing unusual had happened. Just empty space, distant stars, and the occasional asteroid field. Some of the crew complained about the boring assignment, but Hyun-Woo didn't mind. After 15 years of military service, he appreciated the calm. Lieutenant So-Young Park sat at the communications station behind him. She was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. So-Young was good at her job, maybe the best communications officer he had ever worked with. She could pick up signals from across the solar system and decode them faster than the ship's computers. "Commander," So-Young called out suddenly. Her voice carried a note of excitement that made Hyun-Woo turn around. "I'm picking up something strange." "Strange how?" Hyun-Woo walked over to her station. The screen showed waves of energy dancing across a grid. Numbers scrolled down the side faster than he could read them. "It's a transmission, sir." "But not from Earth or any of our colonies?" So-Young frowned at her screen. "The signal is coming from way outside human space. Maybe 50 light-years beyond our furthest outpost." Hyun-Woo felt his pulse quicken. First, contact protocols had been drilled into every Earth Defense Force officer, but no one expected to actually use them. Humanity had been alone in the universe as far as anyone knew. They had sent signals into space for decades and never received an answer. "Are you sure it's not just natural space noise?" he asked. So Young shook her head. "No, sir, this is definitely artificial, and Commander..." She paused, looking up at him with wide eyes. "It's not in any human language." The bridge suddenly felt very quiet. Even the normal ship sound seemed muted. Hyun-Woo could hear his own heartbeat. "Put it through the speakers." The sound that filled the bridge was unlike anything Hyun-Woo had ever heard. It started as a low, musical tone that rose and fell like a sad song. Then came clicking sounds like insects talking to each other. After that, a series of high-pitched whistles that hurt his ears. The transmission repeated the same pattern over and over. "How many different languages do you think that is?" Hyun-Woo asked. So Young was already working on her computer. "I'm counting at least 12 distinct patterns, sir, maybe more. The computer is trying to find any mathematical sequences or universal constants that might help us translate." Captain Dong-Hyun Lee emerged from the elevator at the back of the bridge. He was older than Hyun-Woo, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. Dong-Hyun served as the ship's strategic advisor and was probably the smartest person Hyun-Woo had ever met. "What's all the excitement about?" Dong-Hyun asked as he approached. "We're receiving an alien transmission," Hyun-Woo said. The words felt strange coming out of his mouth. Multiple alien transmissions, actually. Dong-Hyun's eyebrows rose. "How far out?" 50 light-years, maybe more." "That's a powerful signal to reach us from that distance." Dong-Hyun listened to the alien sounds for a moment. "This isn't a greeting or a first contact message." "Listen." To the tone, the repetition. "This sounds like a distress call," So-Young finished. She looked up from her station with excitement and worry mixed on her face. "Sir, I think I'm starting to understand parts of it." The computer found some mathematical patterns in universal physical constants. "Look." Her screen now showed a rough translation scrolling across the bottom. The words were broken and incomplete, but the meaning was clear enough to make Hyun-Woo's blood run cold. Double quotes, ... under attack. 17 worlds fallen, need military assistance. Coordinates follow. Any spacefaring civilization, please respond. Time running out. The bridge fell silent except for the continued alien transmission. Hyun-Woo stared at the translation, trying to process what he was reading. Somewhere out in the galaxy, an entire civilization was crying for help. Maybe multiple civilizations? So young, how strong is this signal? Dong Haiyan asked. Very strong, sir. This isn't being sent to us specifically. It's being broadcast in all directions across a huge area of space. Whoever sent this wants everyone to hear it. Dong Haiyan nodded slowly. A galactic distress call? They're so desperate, they're calling out to anyone who might be listening. More translation appeared on So Young's screen. The computer was getting better at understanding the alien languages as it gathered more data. The new words made the situation sound even worse. RAVAGAR swarm advancing, last defensive line at Nexus Station. Military frequencies attached. 17 species extinct. Send whatever forces you can spare. Han Wu felt a chill run down his spine. 17 species extinct. An entire galactic community under attack by something called the Ravager Swarm. And they were so desperate for help that they were broadcasting their military secrets to anyone who would listen. Commander, So Young said quietly. I'm getting coordinates now. The signal is coming from a location about 47 light-years from here. The computer is also picking up what looks like military communication frequencies and some kind of star charts. This changes everything, Dong Haiyan sighed. We need to contact Earth Command immediately. Han Wu nodded, but his mind was racing. The implications were enormous. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe. There was an entire galactic community out there, and it was dying. Some enemy called the Ravager Swarm was destroying world after world, and the surviving aliens were so desperate that they were calling out to complete strangers for help. Sir, So Young said, her voice barely above a whisper. There's something else. I'm analyzing the technical data they're sending along with the distress call. Their technology. It's incredible. Energy sources we've never seen, materials that shouldn't exist, weapons that work on principles we don't understand. But they're losing, Dong Haiyan observed. All that advanced technology, and they're still being destroyed by this Ravager Swarm. The alien transmission continued to play, the same desperate message repeating in multiple languages. Han Wu could hear the fear in those alien voices, even though he couldn't understand the words. Fear was universal, apparently. What kind of enemy could destroy 17 species with advanced technology? Han Wu wondered aloud. Maybe the kind that doesn't fight fair, Dong Haiyan replied. Or maybe these aliens just don't know how to fight. A real war. Haiyan Wu looked at him sharply. What do you mean? Think about it. They're broadcasting their military frequencies to complete strangers. They're sending out their exact location. They're basically giving away every military secret they have to anyone who will listen. Dong Haiyan gestured at So Young's screen. Either they're incredibly trusting, or they've never had to deal with the kind of enemy that would use that information against them. The transmission suddenly changed. New voices joined the chorus, and So Young's computer began translating. Different messages? These were from other locations, other groups of aliens adding their own desperate pleas to the galactic distress call. 3 days until the swarm reaches our system. Evacuating civilian population. Need escort ships. Orbital defenses. FAILIG require immediate reinforcement. Children being moved to inner colonies. Last message from Cathari homeworld. No survivors detected. Ravager swarm moving toward Nexus Station. Double closed. Han Wu closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Somewhere out in the darkness of space, an entire galactic civilization was fighting for its life. Children were being evacuated. Worlds were falling silent. And the only thing standing between the survivors and total extinction was a desperate hope that someone, somewhere, would hear their call and come to help. Set course for Earth, he ordered. Maximum speed. And get me a direct line to Admiral Choi. The Aegis Prime turned toward home, carrying news that would change human history forever. The command center of the Earth Defense Force carrier Seoul's Thunder buzzed with activity. Admiral Ji-hoon Choi sat at the head of a long metal table, his weathered hands folded in front of him. Around the table sat the most important military leaders in human space. The holographic display in the center showed the alien transmission data that had arrived 3 hours ago. Admiral Choi was a man who had seen many battles. His gray hair and lined face told stories of decades spent protecting humanity. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for this moment. The weight of the decision before him could change the course of human history. "Let's review what we know," Admiral Choi said, his voice calm despite the tension in the room. Commander Kim's ship received a distress call from an alien civilization. Multiple alien civilizations, actually. They're under attack by something called the Ravager Swarm. Lieutenant Colonel Minho Jang shifted in his seat. He was younger than most of the officers present, but his tactical mind was sharp as a knife. "Sir, with respect, we know almost nothing about this situation. We don't know who these aliens are, what their technology can do, or what we're really dealing with." Commander Yoo-jin Nam leaned forward. She was the fleet's combat specialist, known for her aggressive tactics and quick thinking. "We know they're dying," she said firmly. 17 species extinct. Entire worlds going silent. If we wait to gather more intelligence, there might not be anyone left to save. "That's exactly why we need to be careful," Minho replied. "This could be a trap. Maybe this Ravager swarm is trying to lure more victims by broadcasting fake distress calls." Dr. Yoon-soo Bae, the fleet's xenobiologist, looked up from her tablet. She had been studying the alien data since it arrived, and her findings were disturbing. "I don't think it's fake," she said quietly. "The technical data they sent along with the distress call is too complex and detailed to be a deception. These are real civilizations with real technology." "What kind of technology?" Admiral Choi asked. "Advanced beyond anything we have, Doctor." Bae replied. "Their energy generation systems are centuries ahead of ours. Their material science makes our best alloys look like stone tools. Their computers process information faster than our entire network combined." The room fell quiet. If these aliens were so advanced, what kind of enemy could destroy them so completely? "There's something else," Dr. Bae continued. "I've been analyzing their military communications. The way they talk about warfare, their tactical discussions. It's strange." "Strange how?" Commander Yoo-jin asked. "They seem to focus entirely on defense. Evacuation procedures, shield harmonics, retreat patterns. I haven't found a single reference to offensive operations or counterattacks." Dr. Bae scrolled through her data. "It's like they don't know how to fight back." Lieutenant Colonel Minho frowned. "That doesn't make sense. How do you build an interstellar civilization without knowing how to fight?" "Maybe they never had to," Admiral Choi said thoughtfully. "Maybe the galaxy was peaceful before this Ravager swarm appeared." Captain Sung-min Oh, the fleet's intelligence officer, had been quiet until now. He was a careful man who always thought before speaking. "Sir, I've been thinking about the implications of responding to this call. If we show up with our full military capability, it might cause panic among the survivors." "What do you mean?" Admiral Choi asked. "Think about it from their perspective," Sung-min explained. "They've been fighting a purely defensive war against an overwhelming enemy. Suddenly, unknown aliens appear with weapons and tactics they've never seen before. They might see us as another threat." Commander Yoo-jin shook her head. "They called for help. They want military assistance." "They want help from someone like them," Sung-min replied. "Someone who fights the same way they do. But if Dr. Bae is right about their tactical limitations, we don't fight anything like them." Admiral Choi leaned back in his chair. The alien transmission continued to play softly in the background, a constant reminder of the desperate voices calling out across the galaxy. Each repetition of the message felt like a countdown timer, marking the moments until another world might fall silent forever. "Admiral," Dr. Bae said hesitantly, "there's something else you should know. I've been analyzing the data about this Ravager swarm. The aliens describe them as creatures that devour entire worlds, leaving nothing behind but dead rock." "Biological enemies?" Minho asked. "I think so. The descriptions mention swarms of living ships that reproduce by consuming organic matter. They don't just conquer worlds, they eat them completely. Dr. Bay's voice was grim. If this enemy reaches Earth... She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood. The Ravager swarm wasn't just a military threat to distant aliens. If they consumed the entire galaxy, Earth would eventually be next. Admiral Choi stood up and walked to the viewing screen. Outside, he could see the ships of the Third Battle Fleet spread across space like a constellation of metal stars. 50 warships, each one designed for one purpose: protecting humanity from threats. But this threat was unlike anything they had ever faced. Options? He said without turning around. We could send a small scouting force, Minho suggested. Single ship to observe and gather intelligence. By the time they report back, it might be too late, Yujin countered. We need to act now while there are still survivors to save. Or we could ignore the signal entirely, Su Min said quietly. Focus on defending Earth and let the galaxy sort itself out. The room erupted in angry voices. Several officers spoke, at once arguing about duty and humanity's place in the universe. Admiral Choi let them debate for a few minutes, then raised his hand for silence. Dr. Bay, he said, in your professional opinion, could this Ravager swarm eventually threaten Earth? Yes, sir. If they consume the entire galaxy, they'll eventually expand outward. Maybe not in our lifetime, but someday they'll reach our solar system. Admiral Choi nodded slowly. Then we're not really choosing whether to get involved. We're choosing when to get involved. He turned back to face the room. The Third Battle Fleet will answer the distress call. But Captain O is right about approaching carefully. We'll present ourselves as a minor spacefaring civilization responding to their call for help. We won't reveal our full capabilities until we understand the situation better. Sir, Yujin said, what if they need our full capabilities to win? Then we'll give it to them. But first we learn. We observe. We understand what we're dealing with. Admiral Choi looked around the table at each officer. This is humanity's first contact with a galactic civilization. We have one chance to make the right impression. Lieutenant Colonel Minho cleared his throat. Admiral, what if our way of fighting is too aggressive for them? What if they can't accept what we might have to do to win? Then we'll teach them. Admiral Choi replied simply. Sometimes the student has to become the teacher. Dr. Bay pulled up a star chart on the main display. The distress call is coming from here, she said, pointing to a distant system. According to their data, it's a massive space station called Nexus Station. Thousands of ships from dozens of species are gathered there for a final defensive stand. How long to reach them? Admiral Choi asked. At maximum jump speed, 18 hours, the navigation officer replied. Admiral Choi looked around the room. One final time. Gentlemen, ladies, we're about to make history. In 18 hours, humanity joins the galactic community. Let's make sure we're ready. The meeting broke up as officers hurried to prepare their ships. Admiral Choi remained at the viewing screen, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, aliens were fighting and dying while waiting for help that might never come, but it would come. Humanity was coming. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system, and Admiral J1 Shin felt his breath catch in his throat. Through the viewing screen of his command ship, he could see something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Nexus Station was enormous. The alien space station stretched across hundreds of kilometers, its surface covered in lights that twinkled like stars. But it wasn't the station itself that amazed him. It was the thousands of ships surrounding it. Ships of every shape and size floated in space around the station. Some looked like metal flowers with delicate petals. Others resembled giant insects, with multiple arms extending from their bodies. A few were simple spheres that glowed with inner light. Many were shapes that human minds could barely understand, curves and angles that seemed to bend space itself. Sir, Lieutenant De Yun-Ko said from her position at the communications station, I'm receiving dozens of different signals. Scanner shows at least 30 different ship designs, maybe more. Admiral Shin nodded slowly. Each ship design probably represented a different alien species. 30 or more different civilizations? all gathered here in one desperate last stand against an enemy that had already destroyed 17 others. Are they scanning us? He asked. Yes, sir. Multiple sensor sweeps from different directions, but they seemed careful, not aggressive. Colonel Teho Ru, the fleet's military observer, was studying his tactical display with a frown. Admiral, something's wrong with their formation. Wrong how? They're positioned for defense, but not good defense. Their ships are clustered too close together around the station. If an enemy attacked from multiple directions, they couldn't cover all the approaches. Teho shook his head. It's like they're trying to hide behind the station instead of protecting it. A new voice came over the communications system. It was obviously artificial, probably a computer translation, but Admiral Shin could hear curiosity and hope underneath the mechanical words. Unknown vessels, this is Nexus Station Control. Please identify yourselves. Are you responding to our distress transmission? Lieutenant Daiyun looked at Admiral Shin, waiting for instructions. This was it, humanity's first words to an alien civilization. Whatever he said next would be remembered forever. Nexus Station Control? This is Admiral J1 Shin of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call and have come to offer assistance. There was a long pause. When the alien voice returned, it sounded surprised and confused. Earth Defense Force? We have no record of your species in our databases. Where is your homeworld located? Earth is located in what you probably call the Outer Rim territories. We are a small civilization. We heard your call for help and brought what ships we could spare. Another pause, longer this time. Admiral. Shin could imagine the aliens trying to figure out what to make of these unknown humans who had appeared out of nowhere. Admiral Shin, you are welcome at Nexus Station. Please dock at Bay 17. Our commanders wish to meet with you immediately. As the human shuttle approached the docking bay, Admiral Shin studied the interior of the alien station through the shuttle's windows. The corridors were wide and tall, designed for beings much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with soft blue light. Occasionally he caught glimpses of the aliens themselves, tall figures moving gracefully through the passages. The docking bay was huge, easily large enough to hold a human battleship. But what struck Admiral Shin most was how clean everything looked. The metal surfaces gleamed like mirrors. There were no burn marks, no battle damage, no signs of the desperate war these aliens claimed to be fighting. Commander Subin Lee, the fleet's diplomatic officer, walked beside him as they left the shuttle. She was young but experienced, having handled several difficult negotiations with Earth's colonies. Sir, I've been monitoring their communications. Their translation systems are remarkable, much better than ours. What are they saying about us? They're curious, mostly. Lots of questions about where we came from and what kind of help we can provide. But Admiral ... She paused. They seem to think we're just another defensive fleet like theirs. A group of aliens waited for them at the end of the docking bay. Admiral Shin had seen the descriptions from Dr. Bay's reports, but seeing them in person was different. The leader was nearly 3 meters tall, with crystalline skin that reflected the station's lights. Its body was thin and elegant, moving with a fluid grace that reminded him of dancers he had seen on Earth. Admiral Shin, the alien said, its voice coming through a small device attached to its chest. I am Commander Veltar of the Cathari Confederacy. We are grateful for your response to our call. Commander Veltar, we came as soon as we received your transmission. How can we help? The alien's face was difficult to read, but Admiral Shin thought he detected sadness in its large, dark eyes. We fear there may be little anyone can do. The Ravager swarm grows stronger with each world they consume. Our defensive lines continue to fall back. As they walked through the station's corridors, Commander Veltar explained the situation. The Ravager swarm had appeared at the edge of the galaxy 5 years ago. At first, only remote colonies had been attacked. The galactic community had tried to help those colonies evacuate, but evacuation took time, and the swarm moved fast. We thought they would stop after consuming the outer worlds, Veltar said. We hoped they would be satisfied and move elsewhere. But they continued inward, consuming everything in their path. Admiral Shin exchanged glances with Commander Subin. The aliens had hoped their enemy would just go away? That didn't sound like any military strategy he had ever heard of. What have you tried besides evacuation? Admiral Shin asked. We established defensive perimeters around important worlds. Our best ships, our strongest shields, our most advanced weapons. But the swarm adapts quickly. They learn from each battle and come back stronger. They entered a large command center filled with aliens of different species. Some looked like Commander Veltar, tall and crystalline. Others were shorter and covered in fur. A few seemed to be made of energy rather than solid matter. All of them looked tired and defeated. Colonel Tejo had been quietly observing the alien technology throughout their tour. Now he leaned close to Admiral Shin and whispered, Sir, their weapon systems are incredible. Energy output beyond anything we have, but they're all designed for precision strikes. Precision strikes? Minimal collateral damage? They could probably hit a single building on a planet without harming anything around it. But if you wanted to destroy an entire enemy fleet, Tejo shook his head. These weapons would take forever. Admiral Shin was beginning to understand. These aliens had advanced technology, but they had never learned to use it aggressively. They fought like surgeons when they needed to fight like soldiers. Commander Veltar, Admiral Shin said carefully, have you considered taking the fight? To the enemy, attacking their staging areas or supply lines? The command center fell silent. Every alien in the room turned to stare at Admiral Shin with expressions of shock and horror. Commander Veltar's crystalline skin actually changed color, shifting from clear to a dark red. Attack them? Veltar said, its voice barely above a whisper. Admiral, we could never do such a thing. The destruction, the loss of life. It would make us no better than the swarm itself. But if you don't fight back, they'll destroy everything anyway, Commander Subin said gently. There must be another way, another alien said from across the room. This one looked like a large insect, with multiple arms. There's always another way besides violence. Admiral Shin looked around the command center at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds. These were the survivors of a galactic civilization that had existed for thousands of years. They had built wonders beyond human imagination, traveled between stars, and created a peaceful community that spanned the galaxy, but they had never learned how to truly fight for their survival. A new alarm began sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and aliens hurried to their stations with practiced efficiency. Admiral Shin recognized the signs. This was a battle alert. The swarm, Commander Veltar said, its voice now filled with fear. They found us sooner than expected. All ships to defensive positions. Through the command center's viewing screen, Admiral Shin could see the alien ships moving into formation around the station. They formed neat, orderly lines, their weapons charging with brilliant energy. It was beautiful and impressive. It was also exactly the wrong way to fight a war. The Ravager swarm appeared at the edge of the system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Admiral J1 Shin watched from Nexus Station's command center as thousands of enemy contacts filled the scanner displays. The alien officers around him moved with quick efficiency, but he could see the fear in their movements. How many ships? Commander Veltar asked, its crystalline skin now a deep purple color that Admiral Shin was learning meant extreme stress. Scanning shows approximately 15,000 individual contacts, replied an alien that looked like a walking tree with glowing bark. They're moving in a standard consumption formation. Admiral Shin studied the tactical display. The Ravager ships didn't look like ships at all. They were organic, twisted things that seemed to pulse and writhe as they moved through space. Some were as small as fighters, others as large as battleships. They moved together like a school of fish, flowing around obstacles and reforming into new patterns. 15,000, Admiral Shin said quietly. How many ships do you have? 843 combat vessels, Veltar replied. Plus support ships and civilian evacuation craft. The numbers were terrible. Nearly 20. Enemy ships for every defender. But Admiral Shin had seen worse odds before. During the Titan colony uprising, human forces had been outnumbered 30-1 and still won the day. Of course, that victory had required tactics these aliens would never accept. All ships take defensive positions around the station, Veltar commanded over the communication system. Prepare to receive enemy assault. All civilian vessels moved to the far side of the station. Admiral Shin watched as the alien fleet repositioned itself. The ships formed concentric circles around Nexus Station, their weapons pointed outward. It looked impressive, but to his military mind it was a disaster waiting to happen. "Commander." "Veltar," he said urgently, "this formation won't work against those numbers. You need to spread out, create multiple defensive lines, force them to divide their attention." "We cannot leave the station undefended," Veltar replied. "Our civilians are depending on us. If you lose your fleet, the civilians die anyway." But it was too late. The Ravager swarm was already accelerating toward the station. The organic ships moved faster than anything Admiral Shin had ever seen, crossing vast distances in minutes instead of hours. They didn't attack in neat formations, like civilized military forces. They came like a wave of destruction, overwhelming and chaotic. The first alien ships opened fire when the enemy reached maximum weapons range. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out across space, each shot perfectly aimed at a specific target. Admiral Shin watched alien weapons destroy dozens of Ravager ships with surgical precision. But for every enemy ship that died, 10 more took its place. "Admiral Choi," Admiral Shin said into his communication device, "are you monitoring this?" "Battle?" "We see it," came the reply from the human fleet, which was still positioned at the edge of the system. "What are your orders?" Admiral Shin looked around the command center. The alien officers were focused on their defensive battle, trying to coordinate the retreat of damaged ships and the evacuation of threatened sections. They fought with discipline and courage, but they were losing badly. "Request permission to engage the enemy," Admiral Shin said. There was a pause. "Admiral, they haven't asked for our direct assistance, and revealing our capabilities might cause panic among the survivors." "Admiral, if we don't act now, there won't be any survivors." On the main screen, Admiral Shin could see the outer ring of alien defenders collapsing. The Ravager ships flowed around the defensive positions like water, attacking from all directions at once. Beautiful alien vessels with technology centuries ahead of humanity were being torn apart by crude organic ships that looked like they had grown in some nightmare garden. "All right," Admiral Choi's voice came back. "You have permission to engage. But Admiral ... show them what humanity can do." Admiral Shin turned to Commander Veltar. "Commander, I request permission to engage the enemy with my ships." Veltar looked at him with surprise. "Your ships?" "Admiral, you said you brought only a small defensive fleet." "We did. But we fight differently than you do." "Yes, of course. Any help you can provide would be welcome." Admiral Shin activated his communication system. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Shin. You are cleared to engage the enemy. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for the entire galaxy." Captain Won-Sik-Yu commanded the destroyer Bizon's Fury, the lead ship of the human attack formation. He had been waiting for this moment since they first heard the alien distress call. His crew was ready, his weapons were charged, and his patience was exhausted. "Target the largest concentration of enemy ships," he ordered his weapons officer. "Full spread, maximum destructive force." The human ships moved nothing like the alien vessels. Where the aliens fought in neat defensive lines, the humans attacked in loose formations that could adapt quickly to changing conditions. Where the aliens used precision weapons to destroy single targets, the humans used area effect weapons designed to destroy multiple enemies at once. The first human missile strike hit the center of the Ravager formation like a hammer. Nuclear fire bloomed in space, vaporizing dozens of organic ships in an instant. The explosion was so bright that the viewing screens on Nexus Station automatically dimmed to protect alien eyes. "What was that?" Commander Veltar gasped. Nuclear missiles, Admiral Shin replied calmly. We call them ship killers. The alien command center fell silent except for the sounds of alarms and status reports. Every alien eye was fixed on the main screen, watching the human fleet tear through the Ravager lines like a sword through cloth. Major Haijin Song led the human fighter squadrons in a way that would have horrified the aliens if they had understood what they were seeing. Her pilots didn't try to protect specific targets or maintain defensive positions. They hunted. They found concentrations of enemy ships and destroyed them. When Ravager forces tried to retreat, the human fighters pursued them and cut them down. They're not just fighting, whispered the alien that looked like a walking tree. They're hunting them. Captain One-Seek's destroyer group had punched through the enemy formation and was now attacking from behind. The Ravager ships tried to turn and face this new threat, but that only exposed them to the alien defenders they had been attacking moments before. Caught between two forces, hundreds of organic ships died in minutes. Impossible, another alien officer said. How are they destroying so many ships so quickly? Admiral Shin watched his tactical display with professional satisfaction. The human ships were performing exactly as designed. Fast, aggressive, and absolutely ruthless. We don't try to minimize damage, he explained. We try to maximize it. The battle turned into a rout. The Ravager swarm, which had been overwhelming the alien defenders through sheer numbers, suddenly found itself being destroyed faster than it could replace its losses. Human weapons designed for maximum destruction carved through the organic ships like fire through paper within 2 hours. The space around Nexus Station was filled with the wreckage of dead Ravager ships. The few survivors of the enemy fleet were fleeing toward the edge of the system, pursued by human fighters that showed no mercy. Status report, Admiral Shin requested. Enemy fleet destroyed or in retreat, Captain One-Seek reported. Human casualties, 3 fighters damaged, no ships lost. Alien casualties ... double quotes, he paused. Significant but much lower than projected. Admiral Shin turned to Commander Veltar. The alien commander was staring at the tactical display with an expression that might have been shock, gratitude, or horror. It was hard to tell with an alien face. How? Veltar finally asked. How did you destroy them so completely? We didn't fight to defend, Admiral Shin replied. We fought to win. The alien command center remained quiet except for the soft sounds of damage reports and casualty lists. Outside, the wreckage of the Ravager fleet drifted in space like a monument to the power of human warfare. For the first time in years, the aliens had won a battle against their enemy, but Admiral Shin could see in their faces that they didn't know what to think about the way that victory had been achieved. 3 days after the battle, Nexus Station felt like a different place. The corridors that had once been filled with fear and desperation now buzzed with cautious hope. But Dr. Hae-Young Kim, the human fleet's cultural attaché, could sense the underlying tension as she walked through the alien sections of the station. She had been meeting with representatives from different alien species, trying to explain human military philosophy. It was proving to be one of the most difficult assignments of her career. How do you explain the concept of total war to beings who had never considered it possible? Dr. Kim, Commander Veltar approached her in the main conference room. The council is ready to hear your presentation. Dr. Kim nodded and followed the tall crystalline being into a large chamber. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in a circle, their various forms creating a rainbow of shapes and colors. Some looked almost human, while others were so alien that she couldn't even tell which end was their head. Honored representatives, Dr. Kim began. I know you have questions about how humans conduct warfare. I'll try to answer them as honestly as possible. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles spoke first. Dr. Kim, we observed your ships pursuing fleeing enemies and destroying them. In our understanding of warfare, once an enemy retreats, they should be allowed to leave. That's where our philosophies differ, Dr. Kim replied carefully. Humans believe that if you allow an enemy to escape, they will return stronger and more prepared. It's more merciful to end the threat completely. More merciful? The question came from a being that resembled a large insect with multiple arms. How is total destruction more merciful than allowing retreat? Dr. Kim had expected this question. Because it prevents future conflicts. The Ravager ships we destroyed today cannot attack other worlds tomorrow. The pilots we killed cannot learn from this battle and develop new tactics against you. The room fell silent. Dr. Kim could see confusion and discomfort on the alien faces that were capable of showing emotion. Finally, Commander Veltar spoke. Dr. Kim, what you describe sounds like what the Ravager swarm does. They also seek total destruction of their enemies. The difference, Dr. Kim said firmly, is that we fight to protect, not to consume. We destroy enemies to save innocent lives, not to feed ourselves. Captain Inguk Lim entered the conference room at that moment. He was the human fleet's combat training specialist, a man who had spent 20 years teaching soldiers how to fight and win. Admiral Choi had assigned him to work with the aliens who wanted to learn human tactics. Excuse the interruption, Captain Lim said. Commander Veltar, the first group of volunteers is ready for training. Volunteers? Dr. Kim asked. Several species have asked to learn human combat methods, Veltar explained. Others ... It paused, its crystalline skin shifting to a darker color. Others believe your methods are too aggressive for civilized beings. Dr. Kim wasn't surprised. In her meetings with individual species representatives, she had noticed a clear division forming. Some aliens, especially those who had lost their homeworlds to the Ravager swarm, were eager to learn more aggressive tactics. Others, particularly those from species that had avoided direct combat, were horrified by what they had witnessed. May I observe the training session? Dr. Kim asked. Captain Lim nodded. It might help you understand what we're dealing with. The training facility was a large hangar that had been converted into a mock battlefield. Holographic projectors created three-dimensional combat scenarios, while gravity generators allowed for realistic movement in all directions. It was impressive technology, far beyond anything humans possessed, but the 20 alien volunteers who had gathered for training looked uncertain and uncomfortable. They came from 7 different species, each with their own physical capabilities and limitations. Some were tall and graceful like Commander Veltar. Others were short and stocky, with multiple arms. A few floated in the air using some kind of natural anti-gravity ability. Welcome to Combat Training 101, Captain Lim announced. Today we're going to learn the difference between fighting to avoid losing and fighting to win. He activated the holographic system, creating a simple scenario. Enemy ships were approaching a defended position from multiple directions. Standard question, how do you respond? A volunteer that looked like a walking crystal formation raised one arm. Establish defensive perimeters around the most valuable targets, concentrate shields and weapons for maximum protection. That's exactly what the Ravager swarm expects you to do, Captain Lim replied. They attack your defensive positions with overwhelming force while their secondary groups move around to attack undefended targets. He changed the holographic display to show a different approach. Human response. Identify the enemy command ship and destroy it immediately. Without coordination, the rest of their fleet becomes much easier to defeat. But what if the command ship is protected by other vessels? Asked another volunteer. Then you destroy those first, quickly and completely, so they can't be used to. Protect the command ship later. Dr. Kim watched the aliens' reactions carefully. Some nodded with understanding, beginning to grasp the aggressive mindset required for offensive warfare. Others looked disturbed, uncomfortable with the idea of deliberately targeting enemy commanders. Lieutenant Colonel Yeo-jin On approached Dr. Kim during a break in the training session. She was the fleet's intelligence specialist, and her expression was troubled. Dr. Kim, I've been analyzing the data we captured from the Ravager ships. I found something disturbing. What kind of something? The Ravager swarm has a homeworld, a central location where they breed and coordinate their attacks. Yeo-jin showed Dr. Kim a holographic star chart. It's here, about 30 light-years from this system. Dr. Kim studied the display. The aliens knew about this? They knew, but they never considered it important. In their minds, attacking the homeworld would be an act of unprovoked aggression against the civilian population. Even though that civilian population is breeding more warriors to destroy galactic civilization, even then, they literally cannot conceive of launching a preemptive strike against an enemy stronghold. Dr. Kim looked back at the training session where Captain Lim was trying to explain the concept of reconnaissance in force to a group of increasingly confused aliens. This was bigger than just teaching new tactics. This was about changing the fundamental way an entire galactic civilization thought about war and peace. Dr. Kim, Commander Veltar approached during another break. I have been thinking about what you said earlier, about preventing future conflicts by ending threats completely. Yes, there is something you should know, the Ravager swarm. They are not the first enemy we have faced. Every few centuries, a new threat appears at the edge of the galaxy. We fight them defensively until they eventually disappear or move on to other regions. Dr. Kim felt a chill run down her spine. They disappear, or do they retreat to build up their strength? Veltara's crystalline skin shifted to a pale blue. Color that Dr. Kim was learning indicated uncertainty. We assumed they disappeared. We never investigated further. Commander, what if they didn't disappear? What if they've been building up strength in hidden locations, waiting for the right moment to attack again? The training session continued, but Dr. Kim's mind was racing. The galactic civilization's defensive mindset hadn't just made them vulnerable to the current threat. It had allowed previous threats to survive and potentially return stronger. The Ravager swarm might be just one of several enemies that had been allowed to escape and regroup over the centuries. Captain Lim, she called out, interrupting the lesson. We need to talk to Admiral Choi immediately. What's wrong? I think we're not just fighting one enemy. We might be fighting the accumulated result of centuries of enemies that were never properly defeated. The training session came to a halt as the implications sank in. The alien volunteers looked at each other with growing fear and understanding. They had been fighting the same war over and over again, never winning decisively enough to achieve lasting peace. Dr. Kim, Veltar said quietly, if what you suggest is true, how many enemies might be out there waiting to attack again? Doctor. Kim looked at the holographic star chart, imagining hidden bases and secret strongholds scattered across the galaxy. I don't know, Commander, but I think it's time we found out. The cultural exchange had become something much more important than teaching aliens how to fight. It had become a mission to fundamentally change how an entire galaxy approached the concepts of war, peace, and survival. The combined fleet gathered at the edge of Ravager space looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Human warships flew alongside alien vessels that had been modified with new weapons and tactics. Admiral Ji-Hoon Choi stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final preparations for humanity's first joint military operation with an alien civilization. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Nexus Station. 3 weeks of intense planning, cultural exchange, and difficult decisions. Not all alien species had agreed to participate in the offensive against the Ravager homeworld. Some still believed that aggressive warfare was morally wrong, even against an enemy that had destroyed 17 civilizations, but enough had joined the cause. 43 different species had contributed ships and crews to what they were calling the Liberation Fleet. It was the largest military force the galaxy had assembled in recorded history, and it was about to attempt something that had never been done before, a preemptive strike against an enemy stronghold. Admiral, Lieutenant So Young Park reported from her communications station. All fleet elements report ready for jump. Admiral Choi nodded. Beside him stood Commander Veltar, who had been chosen to represent the alien coalition. The tall crystalline being had changed significantly over the past 3 weeks. Its skin now showed patterns of silver and gold that Dr. Kim had explained meant determination and courage. Commander, are your people ready for this? Admiral Choi asked. As ready as we can be, Veltar replied. Many of my crew are still uncomfortable with the idea of attacking first, but they understand the necessity. The plan was complex but straightforward. Intelligence gathered from captured Ravager ships had revealed the location of their breeding world, a planet deep in unexplored space where millions of the organic vessels were grown in vast hatcheries. The planet was heavily defended, but it was also the key to ending the Ravager threat permanently. All ships, Admiral Troy announced over the fleet communication system. This is Admiral Troy. Today we don't just fight to defend our homes. We fight to ensure that no civilization will ever again face the threat of total extinction while the galaxy watches helplessly. Today we take the war to our enemies. The fleet jumped to hyperspace in perfect coordination. Human navigation computers worked alongside alien jump drives to ensure that over 800 ships arrived at their destination at exactly the same time. It was a feat of technical cooperation that would have been impossible just a month ago, when they dropped out of hyperspace. The Ravager homeworld lay before them like a nightmare made real. The planet's surface was covered in organic structures that pulsed with sickly light. Streams of new Ravager ships were launching from the surface even as the fleet arrived, like antibodies responding to an infection. Scanning shows approximately 50,000 enemy vessels in the system, reported the tactical officer. They're mobilizing everything they have. Admiral Troy smiled grimly. Good. That means we can destroy them all at once instead of hunting them down later. The battle began immediately. The Ravager forces attacked with desperate fury, throwing everything they had at the Liberation fleet. But this time, they faced an enemy that had learned from human tactics while retaining alien technological advantages. Captain 1CQ led the human destroyer group in a direct assault on the planet's orbital defenses. His ships had been upgraded with alien shield technology, making them nearly invulnerable to Ravager weapons. At the same time, alien cruisers used human-designed battle tactics to coordinate devastating attacks on enemy formations. Commander Subin Lee watched from the bridge of an alien command ship as mixed human-alien fighter squadrons tore through the Ravager fleet. The alien pilots had learned to hunt like humans, pursuing fleeing enemies and showing no mercy. But they retained their precision and technical skill, making them even more effective than purely human forces. It's working, Veltar said with amazement. The combination of our technologies with your tactics, it's more powerful than either approach alone. The space battle raged for 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Liberation fleet fought with the aggressive efficiency of humanity, combined with the advanced technology and numerical strength of the galactic civilization, Ravager. Ships died by the thousands, their organic hulls no match for the focused fury of the combined force, but the real target was the planet itself. Deep beneath the surface lay the breeding chambers where new Ravager swarms were created. Those had to be destroyed if the threat was to end permanently. Major Haijin Song led the ground assault, commanding a mixed force of human marines and alien soldiers. The aliens had never attempted a planetary invasion before, but they learned quickly. Their advanced personal shields and energy weapons made them formidable infantry, while human tactical doctrine ensured they used their advantages effectively. The fighting on the planet's surface was brutal but brief. The Ravager ground forces were designed for overwhelming poorly defended colonies, not for fighting a coordinated military assault. Within 12 hours, the breeding chambers were located and destroyed. All primary targets eliminated, Major Song reported. The planet is secure. Admiral Choi looked around the command center at the faces of aliens from dozens of different worlds. Many looked tired and shaken by the violence they had witnessed and participated in, but all of them looked relieved. For the first time in 5 years, the galaxy was safe from the Ravager threat. Status of the enemy fleet? He asked. Eliminated or scattered, came the reply. Some small groups escaped to hyperspace, but without their breeding world, they posed no long-term threat. 6 months later, Admiral Choi found himself standing in a place he had never expected to see, the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Station. The ancient hall had been rebuilt and expanded to accommodate representatives from dozens of species. including humanity. Commander BORAM SEO, now wearing the uniform of Earth's first galactic liaison officer, stood beside him as they waited for the ceremony to begin. She had been chosen for her diplomatic skills and her ability to work with alien cultures. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. Admiral Choi straightened his uniform. "As ready as anyone can be for making history." The ceremony was formal but warm. Representative after representative stood to speak about humanity's contribution to galactic security and the changes that had occurred since first contact. Some praised human military efficiency. Others talked about the cultural exchange that had benefited both sides, but it was Commander Veltar who gave the most important speech. "6 months ago, my people faced extinction," the crystalline being said, its skin glowing with patterns of gratitude and respect. "We had powerful technology and noble intentions, but we lacked the will to do what was necessary to survive. Humanity taught us that sometimes peace can only be preserved through the willingness to fight for it." The formal vote was unanimous. Humanity was invited to join the Galactic Council as the military defense coordinator responsible for training and coordinating the galaxy's defensive forces. It was a role that had never existed before, because it had never been needed. The final scene of the ceremony showed something that would have been impossible just months before: new starships launching from shipyards around Nexus Station. The ships were hybrids of human and alien technology, crewed by mixed teams that had trained together at the new Terran Military Academy. Admiral Choi watched the ships disappear into hyperspace, heading out to patrol the galaxy's borders. They would ensure that no future threat could grow unchallenged in the darkness between stars. The galaxy had learned to defend itself properly. What happens now? Commander BORAM asked. Admiral Choi smiled as he looked out at the stars. "Now we make sure this never happens again. We teach the galaxy that the best defense is making sure your enemies never get strong enough to threaten you in the first place." The galactic community had evolved from a collection of peaceful civilizations into something stronger, a united force capable of protecting itself and others. Humanity had gone from unknown species to galactic protector in less than a year, not through conquest, but by answering a call for help and teaching others how to fight back. The age of helpless defense was over. The age of active protection had begun.